compromise your energy. Darling, let your spirit be free. Don't give up, keep on pushing through. Now is the time, it's all up to you. Alchemize your energy, my friend. Let your spirit be free. Don't give up, keep on pushing through. Now is the time, it's all up to you. No matter the storm, but over tragedy. No matter the storm, but over tragedy. No matter the storm, we will always take flight. Keep on pushing through the darkness of night. There's no limit, let's reach for the sky. Shine so bright, from darkness to light.
All right, welcome everybody. Welcome. We have our special guest here. His name is the Watcher, and he basically is here to like talk about his experience with Jehovah Witnesses church. Before we bring him on, I wanted to like show exactly for those that are not aware of this Jehovah Witness church what they believe in. But first, we wanted to say hello to our guest. Hello, Mel. How are you doing? I mean, hello, Watcher.
Hello, how are you? Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So uh I wanted to like show like a quick video just kind of explaining what the church believes in and what they're kind of like the things, and then we're going to get into like your time at the church. So let's get into this video.
So, what do Jehovah's Witnesses actually believe? Jehovah's Witnesses believe there's only one God, Jehovah is his name, and Jesus is only his son and mediator, and so they don't believe in the Trinity. They believe that 144,000 will go to heaven, and the rest of humans who survive Armageddon will remain on earth. The only ones who will survive Armageddon are those who believe in Jehovah and Jehovah's Witnesses teachings. The rest of humans will be destroyed or basically eliminated, and that will happen any day now. Once all non-Jehovah's Witnesses are eliminated, Jehovah's Witnesses will take over the planet and convert it to a paradise. And once this happens, God is going to reward them with eternal life, which means that they will grow young again and will never die or get sick. All animals who are now carnivores will be transformed into herbivores, and eventually, when Earth is filled with enough humans, God will take away the sexual desires for them to procreate. Jehovah's Witnesses believe that their interpretation of the Bible is the only accurate one. They refer to it as the truth. This implicitly means that everybody else is incorrect. For this reason, they maintain separation from the world in a very insular society because they believe that any external influence is directly from Satan and may steer them away. They have strict rules and policy regarding the ability to access any critical material, to only accepting information from their jw.org website only. Everything else is considered possibly fake news or tainted by Satan's influence. Jehovah's Witnesses marry only other Jehovah's Witnesses, but of course there are exceptions to this rule. And most importantly, which is what impacted me the most, I think Jehovah's Witnesses place their current life on hold, awaiting this paradise that is coming. As most of you know, they don't celebrate Christmas or birthdays, but they don't celebrate holidays except for maybe wedding anniversaries. They are not allowed to vote and do not get involved in any political affiliations. They are anti-LGBTQ and believe that these are choices made out of sinful thinking. They use marking and disfellowshipping to discipline members. The whole group partakes in this, and basically the whole group shuns the individuals.
All right, so those were some of the things that she kind of some of the beliefs that she was showing, but I'm sure there's some other beliefs that are questionable, that you would say that people don't even know about. I mean, I've heard of a lot of those beliefs because I've had friends. So those are like the typical kind of understood beliefs. But I'm sure there are other beliefs that are even like more secret that we don't even know about. So,
Yes, there are many different beliefs that they have. The organization is basically ran by a body called the governing body. It's usually around 8 men who reside primarily in New York State, but lately they've been trying to spread them out throughout the world. I don't usually use the word cult to describe Jehovah's Witnesses. I still call them a religion with a cult like style. But as far as my reason for saying cult is because of the way they adhere to the rules of the governing body versus Jesus or Jehovah God as the belief system works. The governing body is the presence for the religion here on earth. So you'll find that whatever mandates or different, they usually call it new light. So let's say, for instance, recently, I became a Jehovah's Witness when I was around 5 years old. So this is early 80s. During that time frame, a woman could not wear a dress, a pair of pants to the Kingdom Hall. Recently, they've changed that. A man could not wear a beard, and recently they made this change. Now, we know that the Bible hasn't necessarily changed, but the Jehovah's Witnesses have changed their rules based on the times. Recently, there have been so many different court cases due to a big problem that's happening with um, child AB, we'll call it for YouTube, throughout the world. And so when they face these various court cases, you'll find that they're making changes to try to appease and to appeal to the court system. So the lady in the video that you just showed, her point of interest for number one, she talked about shunning. And shunning is something that is very prevalent amongst Jehovah's Witnesses. In fact, you would say it's a way of controlling individuals, but because even if you become a Jehovah's Witness, I often tell people there's only one way out, and that is through shunning. Because if you want to leave the organization and go back to any practices that they condemn, then they're going to shun you and you won't be able to talk to your family. The reason why this is a controlling mechanism is because now you can't talk to your grandmother, you can't talk to your mother. I know individuals that their mom and dad had passed away and left all their resources, their houses, their finances to the Watchtower, Jehovah's Witnesses, that's what it's called, Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. They left everything to them and didn't even call their child to say, hey, I have a terminal illness and I might not be living long. So any individual that wants to leave the organization is going to think twice about that because now they may not be able to speak to their parents again or their siblings, loved ones. Those relationships could be gone forever unless the person comes back to the religion.
so does the Jehovah Witness religion have its own like bank where these people put their money into like insurance that they have like that's through the church that is tied up with the church so that they know that if you're not like oh okay like that that for instance like if I passed away and I have insurance, my next of kin gets that. Do they have it like sewed up that much where legally they have it goes to the church immediately? Like is it
That
that?
could be that could be their individual choice on a family basis. It seemed like you were asking though if Jehovah's Witnesses were their own bank, and if you're asking that,
Yes.
I was at the headquarters for 10 years. And what I learned at the headquarters, especially with some of the things that I went through, that in many cases they're self-insured or self-funded. So much money is coming in, the organization is worth so much that they basically have their own money and can do anything their heart desires.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask you something. Let's go back. Okay, how were you? Did you join the Jehovah Witnesses on your own? Were you born into it?
And what age, if you went there, how old was you when you got there?
Okay. So as I previously mentioned, I became a Jehovah Witness. My grandmother started studying around the time when I was 4 or 5 years old. So basically, from my earliest memories, I was studying the Bible with Jehovah's Witnesses, and I remained a Jehovah Witness for the bigger part of my life. And just to elaborate a little bit more, I had to go through the whole process at a very young age. We're talking about 6 or 7, having a Bible study of my own. I was baptized around 12 years old. There was a brother in the congregation that went over the questions with me, and that made a determination through the answers because everything is through a guided cookie cutter format. And so, whatever books we were studying at the time, you had to study those books, answer the questions, and then when you showed interest in becoming baptized, an elder or two would sit down with you and go over your questions for baptism. And in my case, there was a brother who went over my questions. His name is Brother Walker. And right now he's in prison in Richmond, Virginia, because of the same issue that I've been advocating against, which is child's CB. Okay.
Hmm.
So I think he got 30 years in prison. He was 60 years old. So that just goes to show on a smaller scale how there's just so much with the religion. But just sticking to the point of how I developed as a Jehovah Witness, I studied, got baptized at 12, and then I continued to serve, going to the meetings. We would go out in field service, knocking on doors, all the things that you typically see Jehovah's Witnesses do. Nowadays, you see them at carts. We weren't doing that at the time. We basically knocking on doors, giving talks. And then as I went on to graduate from high school and so forth, I started to pioneer. And at the age of 21, I was asked to come and serve at the headquarters, which I resided in Walk Hill, New York.
Okay, let me just ask one more question. Is it a point in time where you only could read like their materials and nothing from the outside of the world, like only their books, their articles, their teachings, and were y'all allowed to read anything outside of it? Like, how did that process go?
Referring to is before the internet became popular. So really the only books that we were allowed to read was the Watchtower, studying the Watchtower, any publication. So anytime you wanted to study the Bible, you would always have to refer to the publications that the Jehovah Witnesses had developed so that you could get a proper understanding of the Bible. So you could not go out. I mean, if you wanted to look in an encyclopedia or what have you, you could, but you couldn't give a talk and start sharing some information that might be borderline interfaith or teaching some other thought process. Everything you teach, especially as I was older and giving more talks on the meetings, that's what we call it, parts on the meeting, then you have to stick to the script and not go left field, or else you would be counseled. Also, during my time, they heavily discouraged going to college because, in college, you learn to be a critical thinker, and that could lead you astray from the faith. It's a heavily controlled situation, if you get my drift.
So so there was another cult that we covered, even though you don't consider JW a cult. That almost like the Catholic Church, when one person passes on, like it's called the Sweet Daddy
Your
cult.
phone is choppy.
Oh, okay. It's called the Sweet Daddy cult, and this is a billion. They have like billions of dollars in this cult in real estate.
Couldn't
And
look at what you're saying. Sorry.
you can't hear me at all. Okay, hold on. All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, clear.
All right, so there's a cult called the Sweet Daddy cult, and they have various different sweet daddies. Like when one passes away, then they vote another one in. Um, it kind of sounds like similar to how with the governing body, right? Almost like the Pope, they have the Sweet Daddy,
Yes.
and I'm wondering, is the main leader is there like a leader of the governing body, or is it just the governing body like without one particular leader.
There's a governing body, and there's always a chairman that pulls the most weight, if you will.
So it's not like the Pope, like for instance, like every year they when one gets old, they bring in a new Pope. Is it kind of like similar to that like the Catholic religion
I
or
think they
Yeah,
mean
when
more
one
like the
goes around,
Mormons.
there's usually, yeah,
Mormon?
usually there's around the
Okay,
Mormons, yeah.
okay.
Usually there's around 8, and if during my time of 10 years, many of them died, and so as they died, they would be replaced. Recently, a governing body member, Anthony Morris, he was somehow removed from the governing body without a lot of detail, and then some other brothers were put in to replace him, one or two.
So okay, so I was just trying to get an idea if there was like a main person that like determines new laws and new rules. So this is like a corporation, really. Is it structured more like a
Well,
corporation?
it's structured like a corporation, but there's different departments. So you have the 8 brothers, and each of those brothers have their own typical department. So, like one governing body would be member would be over the teaching committee. So they deal with a lot of the doctrines, and then another governing body member might be over the writing department. And so they all collectively meet every Wednesday to discuss the organization and the direction, and if there's new light, and making new policies. So now, like during my time, most of the average governing body member was around 77 years old. And quite frankly, I used to get up every morning at 7 o'clock to go to what we call morning worship. I did that for 10 years. So I had to be there at 7. We'd have a 15-minute spiritual lesson or worship, and then we would have breakfast. It would be roughly 10 of us at the table. We would have a table head, and I'd say there were about 250 tables at least where I met at. And at that time, there were 3 different locations. So down in Brooklyn, where I served sometime, I was primarily at Walk Hill. And then you also had over the Educational Center over in Patterson. So during that time, a lot of the guys were so old and stuck in their ways, so they kept a lot of the policies that were old fashioned. But now that most of these men who during that time they taught that these men would be alive probably because the end of the world was coming and these men would just go right into heaven to be Christ's brother, while these men died. So now you have the newer, younger brothers who are becoming governing body members, and they're starting to, um, you know, lack some of the rules and regulations of the organization.
Now, I remember at one point in time, I don't know if it's still like that or was it ever like that, but it was spoken as it was racism. Did you ever feel a little racism while in the church? Because they said for certain positions, Black people cannot get certain positions. So, how did you feel about that?
Yes. So I'll give you an experience of what happened to me. I've never shared this before. So when I first came to the headquarters, which we call Bethel, so in turn I would be called a Betholite. I was a new Betholite. My grandmother was dying when I came to New York. In fact, she died 2 months after I had arrived. I came in August and she died in November, so a couple months. So when I came, there was a couple of black guys in my congregation where I was put to serve,
Yeah.
and the
Wait, I'm
brothers were
sorry. I'm
telling me,
sorry. Everybody say your mic is a little bit muffled. Kind of maybe if you step a little back from it, there you go. Maybe it won't be not enough talk. Say something
okay, can you hear me?
better. Yeah, you were too close. That's all. Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay. So I'll go back, I'll retract this a little bit. So when I came out to serve at the headquarters, my grandmother was dying with cancer, but it was her will for me to come because, and also I wanted to come because at this time I was believing in everything as well. Um, she had cancer it was a very, very tough time. When I came to my congregation, we had a brother who was very old school, white brother, and there was a couple of black guys in my congregation, black brothers, and one in particular had told me, he was like, "Man, this congregation is very racist, and you have to look out for this brother, you have to look out for that brother." And then, as I began to serve, there were other brothers who had been there like 20, 30 years, older black brothers, and they were saying, "Listen, you have to keep your ears to the floor, nose to the floor. You got to watch your back and be careful and don't do this, don't do that." So I called my grandmother as she was passing. I'm like, "Grandma, this place is racist." And she was like, "What?" And I could tell she believed me, and I also shared it with another family member of mine. And I'm like, "Listen, some of the brothers here are telling me that these guys are racist." And that particular family member was like, "Oh, stay away from those guys. They're just whatever." Well, throughout my years, I learned that that was really true, what I was being told when I first came in. In fact, I was very thankful, and I learned to survive under those circumstances. In fact, during my final years at the headquarters, they had a big layoff, and I think I was there throughout three of those layoffs. And one of the big talks that they had happened during February. And so the black brothers were saying, a joke was going around, it's Black History Month. And if you're black, you're history. So that gives you an idea that it was a common um, philosophy that was known
Wow.
amongst brothers, but you couldn't dare talk about it.
So did you get
Wow.
paid to work at the headquarters, or was it you expected to be a labor of love?
Okay, so just like with any other religion, everything you do is basically for God. And especially being a child at the age of 4 or 5, growing up, you're really brainwashed. Basically, it's all you know, because the person that's feeding you and taking care of you every day, your parents, they're the ones who are leading you in this direction. So you trust the process, right? So when I went there, I totally thought that this was for God. I didn't realize, I didn't even know the history of the organization. So they gave us a $90 stipend. So you receive $90 every month. And then if you had a car, which when I came in, I did have a car, my auto insurance was $30 a month. And I also had to pay, I believe it was $65 a year just to have an air conditioning. And then they had what we call, and they also call it in prison and other places, the commissary. So they would have a markup on the items in the commissary. So basically, we're all coming from different parts of the world, and they have these meals that are Mediterranean, and you're eating all these salads, and sometimes, boiled eggs with whole wheat grain cereal. So then you tend to go to the commissary. Well, now you're buying Hot Pockets, right? And the Hot Pockets that you probably buy, let's say in Walmart, you might pay $2 or $3. They're charging a little markup on that. And so you get a number, and so you swipe your identity card, which I still have mine, and when you swipe your card, it gets added to your bill just like a credit card. So your $90 that you would receive each month, that little stipend they call it would add up very quick. So when I first came in, just to give you a little background on the stipend, the first thing you do, you get called to what they call is Bethel office, and I would have to sit down and sign a vow of poverty. That vow of poverty basically gives them the right to control my body when I die. It also tells me that any money that I made during the time of the process of being a Betholite, which I would have to hand over that money to Watchtower, also known as Jehovah Witnesses. So $90 a month.
Now, how was like the like if you wanted to date somebody, was it like arranged or you could pick who you want long as they're in the Jehovah Witness? How did that go?
Yes, you could only marry in the Lord, and you could only date if marriage was in view. So, in other words, if you wanted to date at 16 or 17, you can't, because obviously a person doesn't typically get married until after they're 18, 19 years old. So it was very strict as far as dating, and just playing the sisters along. That's what they would counsel the brothers for, just leading the sisters on if you know you're not going to marry them. And if you ever went out on a date, you would have to have a chaperone so that obviously you wouldn't do any touchy feely. Because the common thought was that sex was fornication or pornea based on the Bible, right? But they changed that along the way because we would have these parties that we would go to, and sometimes the young brothers and sisters would be listening to music, which also the music they discouraged listening to rap and all that. But if you were grinding on the girls while dancing, they made it so that could be pornea too, depending on if you were stimulated, how long you did it, and if you so forth and so on.
Now, far as the duties, right? Because you have the ones that, well you will know because you from Brooklyn, well you from New York. You'll have the ones that's sitting outside, the older ladies sitting outside, and then you have the ones that goes into the buildings. Like, how did the work schedule go? Because some people said, you could never get a day off. It was like something you always had to do for service.
Okay. So are you speaking about regular Jehovah Witnesses serving in the congregation or a person that would be a Bethelite such as myself at the time?
Okay, what is a Betholite versus a
Right.
regular?
I was getting ready to say that.
What? This sounds more
Okay.
deeper than I ever imagined. I didn't know there were separate
I
groups and
I I explained it earlier, but I know it's very complex.
yeah,
When you
wow.
go and serve at the when you go and serve at the headquarters, they call that Bethel based on the Bible place in the
Oh,
Bible called
gotcha.
Bethel, right?
Hmm.
In Genesis. So as you're at Bethel, they call you a Bethelite, which is very common. If you live in Brooklyn, some people call you a Brooklynite, right?
Hmm.
So the same concept. So now you're serving under the direction of the headquarters. I'm at the location where they're making the Bibles and raising the animals and producing the food and creating the videos. Whereas a person that's serving in the congregation, like the sisters that you're talking about, maybe on the street,
Right.
then they're living in their own home. They're managing, some of them could be nurses doing home care. Some of them might go out and field service for 2 hours a month. Some of them might go out for be pioneers and get 60 hours a month. So it's a big variation to each person.
But that was part of that was. Did you have to do it, or that you you made a choice to do it?
Okay, so let's talk about the two different ways.
Hmm.
Um, at the headquarters, serving as a Bethelite, throughout my 10 years, I served in different areas, right? So at one point, I was a barber, to the cleaning department, to security, to office, to being an overseer, all these different facets throughout my career. I'm expected to be at work from um, 8 to 5 every day, and you get an hour lunch break. Morning worship at that time started at 7. So basically, my spiritual day started at 7, along with breakfast. I would work all the way until 5. After 5, it's my free time if I don't have a meeting night. But usually, I have parts on the meeting or have to go out and field service. If
Hmm.
it's your first year, you're expected to read the entire Bible in the first year. So you're busy reading the Bible. So typically after 5, you're on your own to the next morning at 7 a.m. On Saturdays, you typically work from 8 to 12, and then you're free to do whatever. A lot of people go hang out. They love to do the Spanish parties and maybe go down to the city if you weren't in Brooklyn. A lot of us that were in Walk Hill would go to the city. And then on Sunday, you go to your meetings and field service. Um, some Bethelites would also pioneer. So pioneers are regular it's a status where you can get 60 hours a month to show your love and devotion to God, to go out and preach and knocking on people's doors for that allotted time every month. So you have the duality of being a Bethelite and a pioneer some months. I even did that some months when I was really gung ho for it. But the sisters in the congregation typically are the ones that you see out in field service, and a lot of them could be up in their 60s, 70s, and
Mm-hmm.
you always see them out knocking on doors. They're
Mm-hmm.
volunteering. They're getting, at that time, they were getting 60 to 80 hours a month. They're spending their own money, their
Yep.
own time, their own gas. And like I said, they do it because they see God, they don't see man.
And no chaperones. And no chaperones. I was like, these poor ladies, right? Now, what is the stage on how y'all bringing people? Do they have special people who knows like the doctrine, like how you will them in and how much time do you spend with the person to see if they want to hear you or go to the next one? How is that process?
Your phone cut out, I'm sorry.
Can you hear me now?
A little bit better.
Okay. How is the process when y'all trying to
Yeah,
bring people?
you have to
Okay.
go out and come back in.
All right. DJ, have you heard what I
Yeah.
said?
She's
Repeat.
saying what's the process of where you're trying to bring people in. Also, I was trying to find out what determines if someone gets to Bethel or not. Like, or is it like this if you're in New York, or do you have to build up to get to this Bethel? Is everybody like striving to become a Bethelite, or
Yeah, so all the young brothers and even some sisters, as they're growing up, being a Bethelite is like the big shot thing for a lot of people growing up. They want to, some people want to be basketball players. They don't let you play sports. So being a Bethelite is a big deal. In order to become one, you have to put in an application and also become highly recommended by your circuit overseer and your district overseer, as well as the local elders in your congregation. So typically, you would graduate from high school, go out and start pioneering, giving talks, serving in the congregation, doing all these things, and now you're looked upon as being a really great brother. And so then they put the recommendation in for you. And in my case, I received a letter saying, hey, you've been invited to come serve at Watchtower Farms, and I was living in Virginia. I grew up in Virginia, so obviously we come from all parts of the country and across the world.
so were you an older like do they like make kids go there too, leave their families and go to Bethel, or is it only a certain age group that goes to Bethel? Like once you reach the college level.
You have to be 19 to come in. So once I was 19, I was invited on my first application. I did not apply until I was 20 years old.
That's kind
All
of
right.
overseer sounds crazy. It sounds like a slave. I think I'm hearing KRS overseer, overseer, overseer. Like, I'm sorry.
Officer.
I'm
No,
sorry. I'm
I'm
sorry.
saying, I'm saying when y'all are scouting for new people, what is the process? Do y'all have like a something prepared to say to people, and like, and you would know, okay, I got this person. I don't have that person. Let me move on. Like, is it a certain time limit? Like, what is the procedure to bring people in? Is it a certain
Okay.
document? Yeah, a script that y'all read? Do y'all have a script?
So let me give you an idea. They had what you call the theocratic ministry school. So that was basically instituted for everybody to become very good at preaching, because preaching is what grew the organization. The organization is on a decline now because of a lot of reasons, but during that particular time, you would participate in your theocratic ministry school and you would give talks. So I would do a Bible reading starting off, or let's say a person in their 20s, fresh off the street, someone found them, started preaching to them. They started doing a Bible study. They would start doing a Bible reading, and then you would graduate up to giving bigger parts on the meetings. The sisters would sit down, two sisters on stage at the Kingdom Hall on Thursday night, and they would do a part for 5 minutes where they're basically giving you an idea of how to preach to people in the ministry. It would all be an outline that's put before them. They put together their own talk and they practice and then they perform it at the meeting. So that would get you ready to go out and field service anytime, especially on Saturdays or Sundays. That's the bigger days that Jehovah Witnesses are out preaching, unless the people during the week tend to be pioneers, at least at that time. Then we had the theocratic ministry school to the point where they give you different outlines and give you different subject matter and teach you what publication we're going to put out this week, and this is what you can say. And then someone would give a demonstration of how to approach people out on the street. And so typically we would have car groups with 4 people, and we'd meet for field service, and usually there's a brother there that would preside over the field service arrangement. And to prepare everyone for that field service event, they would go over the day's text, which is one scripture with a paragraph or two regarding that scripture. And then we would assign car groups, typically 4 people going out in field service. And we would pair up 2 people to go knock on the doors and approach people in different settings, which now they do carts, which are a little bit different.
Now, what are the keywords that people would say like to make you go, okay, goodbye? Like how much time is spent there? Like like sometimes somebody say the word like Jesus or something like that, you would know, okay, I don't have this person. Move on to the next one. Like how much time do y'all have spent
I'm having
or
tr- I'm having trouble hearing you. I'm sorry.
repeat it, DJ?
Uh, how much time? Like, if you guys have a specific amount of time, for each person, like spent. Is that what you mean? Like they have to like spend a certain amount of time, and if you know that you're not getting through to them, you got to move on to the next. Is it like a timed thing?
Correct.
No, it just depends on how each person responds. If someone wants to stand there and talk to you for a whole hour, it's your choice. But typically, most people would go out in field service and just try to get through their 2 hours or whatever they were trying to get for the day. During that time, they kept track. You had to turn in your time each month. Now they no longer do that. That's one of the changes that they've made, as far as turning in your time. We'd have a form that you would state how many books you sold, how many brochures, how many magazines, and so forth.
And y'all don't
Because
get none
remember, this is no, you
of
didn't get anything for that. And remember, starting off, this was a printing company. So I'm down in Virginia not realizing that this is a organization, company, um, corporation that's making money. And it took many years for me to go through the ranks and realize that, it wasn't everything that I thought it would be.
how high up did you get in the organization? Like, did how high up would you say your position was?
Just a regular, being at Bethel alone is probably the highest pinnacle that most people would try to claim or get to. And while I was there, I was able to oversee a few departments that I worked with, various guys from all over the country.
So that's crazy. They got people, even you know, even with people like what's his name that not Tavis Smiley. What's that big pastor that said he got swallowed up? Like even they get
TD
TD
Jakes.
Jakes.
TD Jakes, even they get paid. Like people, they pay their people. I think that's crazy. That
No, they don't.
well, I know they when I was gonna be hired to do UX for them, they was gonna pay me a salary, but I was not a a church member, so maybe that's
Yeah, that's different. So, at what point in time after the racism, at what point in time did you start seeing things that made you feel uncomfortable?
Well, when I initially made the call to my grandmother, I saw things that made me uncomfortable. First thing, to have a young man, a black man, come to me and tell me basically, because he had already been there 6 years, and to tell me like this is, I always use the analogy of the yellow brick road. You know, you get to the head, the top, and then you realize that it's just some little guy there when the dog pulls down the curtain. You know, so that was the ultimate experience of realizing that it wasn't everything that it was cut out to be.
So,
But let me
so
give you a couple of examples. Okay, go ahead.
I do want to get those examples, but I just want to ask you, if you don't think that this is a cult, what would you say it is? Because if it's not a cult, what is this? Like just an organization, like a company, like a corporation that just sells Christianity and takes advantage of its people, or what would it be if it's not a cult?
I think it's just a business. From my experience, I see a business, and like I said, I went through various situations that I learned that they operate as a business. They call themselves a religion. A lot of ex Jehovah Witnesses, such as myself, call them a cult. Um, a cult is usually looked at as an unorthodox religion, which they fall into that category. But what I'm saying is, I just don't, because I'm trying to appeal to people. I want to have the dialogue. And usually, when you throw out the word cult at people, you lose them instantly because they think you're off the deep end.
Oh, not over
So,
here. Not
I,
over here. Not over here.
okay, but this video might be seen by many someday, and I want people who are struggling
Exactly.
Right.
to
Hmm.
leave. I want them to take me seriously and see that I'm not just some guy here trying to spew evil about Jehovah's Witnesses. In fact, I think Jehovah's Witnesses, the majority of the people are good people trying to serve God. It's just that they don't realize that the religion is more than meets the eye.
Oh, all right. Can you get back into the uncomfortable when you started the more examples of how you was feeling when you started to feel uncomfortable when you started to like wanting to get up out of there? Because the people, may want to hear that.
Well, I'll put it to you this way, because I'm trying to be critical of myself as well. I knew these things and I continued to stay there another 10 years. So I have to be balanced and be real with my view. But remember, I'm coming to a place that I think that I'm doing this for God and that God is looking at me and very happy of my activity and so forth and so on. So that played a big part, so that when I saw things happening, here's an example. The black brother who had the racism talk going on, his overseer was in my congregation too. He was an elder. And what he would do, he hated him so much. He would have him go out in the pasture and dig a hole. So you imagine, today it was maybe what, here in New York, it was hot today, and he'll have you out there digging a hole, and in your mind, what do you think, right? That's a strong statement. Another guy that I knew named Damon, this same brother was on his case so bad that he left Bethel and went and joined the army. So things like that really shook me hard, because I'm like, wow. While I was there, several guys committed suicide. So I'm like, well, maybe I shouldn't have said that on the channel. I'm sorry. So that happened. Um, not knowing all the details behind it, but there was just so much. There's a big division over the white, because you have more white brothers who are presiding and running the organization. Think about it. With the governing body, you have 8 members, and only to this day, there's only one token black brother. And this is what, 2024? That gives you an idea of what Bethel actually looked like. So then the brothers that are there that are black and maybe dealing with a situation like this, is what I learned in my situation. In my hall, my Kingdom Hall, I had a problem with a brother yelling too much. He was a presiding overseer for a very long time, and he was just roughhousing guys, just run your head into the wall, and nobody would challenge him except me. In fact, let me give you an example. When my mother died, previous to that, I was going back and forth to Virginia from New York every weekend, trying to stay in my assignment and taking care of her, and so much going on. And when my mother died, I had to call to tell him, listen, because I needed more time. And I said, hey, my mom died. He says, oh, what a relief. All that going back and forth to Virginia. I mean, he cut me deep. And so he was removed based on those actions and others. But it's the mentality behind these guys, to where if you would go and report one of them to, let's say, brother Tom, he would, by the time you leave his office, right, he's calling the brother you complained about to say, hey, you have this guy in your hall, or this guy that sits at your table, because you have different brothers that would be responsible for your life. You have your table head. That's the guy that I said, you go to morning worship, you sit at his table. All right. So he's reporting whether you're on time, if you're paying attention at breakfast. Then you have your congregation overseer, because after your first year, you're like on probation. So your first year, they get a report from all of these guys to make a determination if you can stay longer. And I had various roommates that didn't make it, it didn't even get to make the cut, because some of the guys that were coming out, let's say from California, were on the lovemenow.com sites. And we had some guys on calling 1-800, freak me now type of deal. So you get all sorts of different guys coming in. But the masses of Jehovah's Witnesses would never even believe that this would happen at the what they would call the house of God, Bethel.
Let me ask you, how was the discipline there? Was there discipline? Was there any discipline that contained abuse?
What was the discipline? That's all I heard. So if you were having any type of trouble, for instance, I had a roommate that they thought had mental illness. So I'll go through three for you. He had mental illness. The brothers would talk to him and told him that they felt that he was eccentric, and if he couldn't get himself together, they were going to send him home early, or he would not pass his first year. He would, at night, at 10 o'clock, we're trying to go to sleep, and he's on his guitar playing it loud. He was a little crazy. There was another brother who was more of the feminine arena, if you get my drift. Now, you would have to assume that he's not practicing, but he belongs to the community. But what he would do, he would wear um, a sweater around his waist, like a woman would typically say. That's probably not good to say at this time. You can't say this stuff, but that's what he would do. And so the brothers told him that he would have to stop doing that because he was not manly enough, and they sent him home right away because he was from California and he just had a whole different way of life.
Wait, so
Um,
he
another,
he got excommunicated because he had a shirt around his because he was looking too feminine with
well,
his
he
shirt.
had the curly, yeah, he had the whole feminine metrosexual thing
Oh,
going on. So
So was there any
GAY appearance, he had the
mhm,
GAY appearance.
the
So
happy?
they
Was
talked to
there
him once, and then the next
not
week they had
funny?
him out of there.
So was there
I had,
any corporal punishment that
what's
you
that?
have heard? Was there any corporal punishment that you ever heard of?
I didn't copy that. Sorry.
Any corporal punishment, abuse of
I
others?
can't hear you.
If you a DJ repeat it.
did you guys have any corporal punishment like where people were beating on each other, like a hazing or
No.
anything like that? No.
There were some instances that happened. For instance, there were roommates that would get to fighting sometimes, so they would be disciplined depending upon how bad it got. We had a special talk one time because the brothers were going to what they call mosh pits, and some guys were jumping off the stage and broke his arm. So they immediately kick you out for that type of stuff. And like I said, depending on whether you're black and from Chicago, like the guys who came from Chicago were really different. You know, we had some of these guys who came out of Chicago who would walk down the hallway. Now, think about it. You have little white old sisters in their 70s, barely walking with a cane. And now you have a big structured black guy coming through saying, in the hallway, you know, these guys were not, they were just really different because they were the best that Chicago could send out. Or the guys who came from California were really different as far as their feminine thing going on. So they would turn them around really quick. But there was no corporal punishment or anything of that nature. They would just basically send you out of there.
Or like drill, they were like drill sergeants. They kind of like, you think they would kind of yell at you a little bit, or was it?
Yeah, they control every facet of your life.
Right.
And
Was I was going to
believe me when I
ask,
tell you that.
I was going to ask you, was y'all allowed to ask questions that was non JW?
That's a good way of getting excommunicated. So that was my issue, but I was smart enough to not ask those questions. So the initial question I think one of you had asked me was like, what kind of started me down this road of not
Yeah,
wanting to
that
be
was
a
me.
Jehovah Witness. So
Yeah.
yeah, so I'll give you a. Let's go in a different direction. You were required to read the Bible cover to cover every year for at least for your first year, and I would do it every year because I was very inquisitive, wanted to do be. I love public speaking. I wanted to be great at it, but I had serious issues with the Bible on my first time through. Before I came to Bethel, I was basically reading the Watchtower. I wasn't really reading the Bible cover to cover. So if I had a part and the part said it was about Genesis 1 chapters 1 through 3, then that's what I focused on, but I wasn't going cover to cover. So during my first year, I went through Genesis and I was focused. I had all my material. And then I started to see in Genesis where it's saying that the plants and the vegetation, the fruit trees were on day 4. And then you had the sun and moon being created on day 5. So with photosynthesis, I'm like, well, how do you have fruit trees being developed before the sun and the moon was even created? So I started to see where Abraham lied about his wife, and then I looked at the about his wife being his sister. I looked it up, and I'm having to give a talk about it. I read an article where it says it's okay to lie. It depends on whether the person has the right to know. So
Hmm.
there were so many different things. Then I got into Noah's Ark, and I started doing research. And could this have really happened? So I started to take issues with the Bible itself,
Hold
but
up,
I easily rationalized my way through it.
back up. You said that where you read that where it's okay to lie, it just doesn't. It matters if a person has a right to know. What?
Yeah, 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 yeah. Where you be, DJ?
That's in their
Uh
publications.
oh.
So I read that I think in the Insight book, and I said, "What? So you can lie?" And so then there was another article that I read. This is now after I've been there 7 or 8 years. I was working on a part because a brother that I knew in my congregation, he had this sister that he knew really well that lived in Brooklyn, and she worked at the courthouse. And she told me on a Saturday night, I'll never forget. She says, "Hey, do you know these two guys?" I says, "Yeah, I see them get conducting morning worship." She says they bribe the judges. I says, "What?"
Mm.
She says, "Yeah, they bribe the judges all the time." And then they came out with an article about bribery. And under certain circumstances, if it's to, progress the kingdom, then it may be okay or whatever. So yeah, but and then I heard I saw some other circumstances where some married brothers were messing with, or yeah, I'll leave it there, messing with another man's wife at Bethel, and it comes down to who knew about it, and depending on if no one knew you sinned, you could still stay at Bethel. If you did this and more people knew about it, you have to go I'm like, wait a minute, this is like the Oz for real. So a lot of things I saw during my time frame. I saw one brother, it really hit me hard. He was a big time overseer of the computer department. And there was a sister, he was married, and I knew his wife. And you know, what happens is when you're at Bethel, you're like a big fish in a small pond, right? It's like being a millionaire out here and as a regular civilian. I use that situation. These guys were able to pull girls that they would never be able to pull on any day out in the real street. But because they were Bethelites, they go home or they go on a trip, and the girls would pull up and say, you know, they want to be with them because these girls want to go to Bethel. So now they marry a guy who's a cornball, has no interest. Some of them are even GAY. That's happened during my. I've seen a lot of that. You know, um, so these women are bitter after a while. So his wife was very bitter. I knew that. You could see she was bitter. So what he did was he went and started being with a sister in his congregation. He bought her a nice ring. And then the brothers, he was really whining and dining her. He's a big time overseer at Bethel, running a big department. And basically, they took away some of his privileges at Bethel. He was allowed to stay, and now he's back to being a high roller.
So
So it's
how
real tricky.
how were the women treated? Was it set up as a patriarchal system? How are the
Yeah,
women treated?
women take the sisters are supposed to be treated with love, but they take a second seat,
Hmm.
and they
And
have to
then
be submissive to their husbands. And there was a big rumor that when the sister comes to Bethel, that she has to watch videos. She can't have
mhm.
oral sex. Well, you know, things like that.
Now
So
is it
everything is controlled.
now is Bethel the place where people go, like let's say they in trouble or something and they have to sit around a bunch of people and then tell their story or whatever, then they got to step out and then I guess y'all do the talk. Is is that Bethel consists of that, or that's some
Well, that
another spot?
happens. That happens. That happens at Bethel, but that happens in every congregation. So let's say, for instance, right? I'll give you an example of a young girl that I knew. She was in high school, maybe 16 or 17 years old. She went to school and she had SE regular just with the kid at school. Because she did that, she had to go and sit before three guys in the
Mm-hmm.
congregation, three elders. They called that a judicial committee. And throughout all the congregations throughout the world, this is the format. So if you do something that's wrong, you have to go and confess your sins. They just recently changed that. They make it a lot harder now for a person to be disfellowship, is what they call it. In other religions, they typically call it being excommunicated. But during that meeting, you have these old men, right, sitting there questioning a young girl that's 15, 16 and asking her details
Yeah.
about did the guy do this to her, and all these things. So that's why now you see all of these cases throughout the organization where actually there's elders in the congregation who have done atrocious things to the
Hmm.
young people in the flock.
Yeah.
But that it's that committee, judicial committee that's formed, and they render a judgment on the people in the congregation.
Did you hear? So investing out the blue says no. They only have to be submissive if the husband is in the faith. Otherwise, she can go to another man and learn and even combat her husband's information, even when they are wrong. So is that something they teach as well in Jehovah Witness?
Yes, that's correct.
So that's to try to
Yeah, I
break
mean,
up that marriage.
basically, women have to. And I couldn't hear everything you said. Can you just say that one more time?
It sounds like they if you're not married to another Jehovah Witness, that they don't mind breaking up that marriage, because if you're going to be combating your
Oh,
husband, yeah.
oh yeah, they're really big on being evenly yoked, and usually um, divorce is frowned upon, but based on the circumstances, I mean, listen, it works like that in the regular churches, these
Yeah.
pastors or these elders in the congregation, they pretty much control your wife. And sometimes I've seen some guys who really like the female, and they maneuver to get the guy out of the picture. And that's why you had in one congregation, I think in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, where the guy went into the Kingdom Hall and shot the guy because he saw the big picture, and they told him they disfellowshipped the husband. Now he can't talk to his wife. They demonized the guy. Now he can't talk to his kids. They controlling the whole narrative, and then he goes in there shooting up the place. And you just think that there's some guy that just went and shot up a hall. You don't get to hear the backstory, all the manipulation.
Now, I would like to get into the shunning, right? Because I think on that behalf, that's why people may well call you guys a cult, because that's one of the techniques that they use. Like how they, so let's get into the shunning, and how can people just cut somebody off and just walk right by them. And so can you could get into that a little bit?
Okay. Just state your question one more time as you fade it out a little bit.
Can you get into the shunning part? And how could somebody just disown you just like that, and with no feelings or emotions?
Okay. I okay, I got you. All right. So this is very deep, and I'll try to break it down to you as best as possible. But there's various factors going on here. Number one, you have people that are being controlled, and this is their way of controlling you is by if you mess up and do any of these things, you're no longer being able to talk to your family. But on the flip side of that, you have your family members or regular Jehovah Witnesses, they're being basically brainwashed. They take an idea, they swallow it whole, and then they're willing to die for it. And a lot of times, people who have all these beliefs, they know very little about the core beliefs of the Jehovah's Witnesses, right? Like for me, one of the things that really shook me is that I was in field service, and a professor at the college said, "Hey, did you know that the guy who started this religion, he was a Seventh-day Adventist and a um, what do you call a Mason?" So
Mm-hmm.
all these things hit me like a ton of bricks. I had no idea. So my typical family, right? They have no idea about the organization on a whole, and that when you read the publication says, "Oh, Jesus started this organization, and then it progressed here and here in the early fathers," right? Okay, so your family is thinking on that line, and they're building up this faith in God, and they believe, just like I used to, that Jehovah sits at the top and Jesus, and they're watching over your life, they're blessing you, and all of that. So when your family member um, sin, they're sinning against God. That's what they're teaching them. Oh, they're sinning. They don't love Jehovah. So if they don't love Jehovah, you can't love them. And they're not going to come back to Jehovah if you still talking to them. So your family, um, they're doing this to you, and they see it as being an act of their service to God. And let me tell you something. There's a young, every time I drove across the bridge here in Poughkeepsie, New York today, and about in 2015, a young man, 17 years old, he was disfellowshipped on a Thursday night. I think they said he was metrosexual. I'll just leave it at metrosexual, that whatever. His father um, was really adamant about the whole thing, and he got what he deserved, perhaps. But the mother was heartbroken. He went on that bridge, and that was the last of him. And every time I drive across that bridge, I think about the pain that the young man must have experienced here. Is actually in the newspaper. It was in the newspaper, all because his family was going to shun him, and the whole congregation. Now think about it. When you're growing up, as he did, all you know is the people in the congregation. You can't go out hanging out with the neighbors. They don't let you play basketball at the schools, developing friends. You can't date the girls in school. You can't go stay over at Tommy house and play video games. He doesn't love Jehovah. He's worldly. So now all these people that you develop your whole life around, your friends, they can't talk to you anymore. And so, see, now recently they've changed that policy because they got tired of going to court and having to defend themselves and explain why these harsh treatments are in effect. And that's where you get the whole cult. You know, you get that
Uh-huh.
unorthodox way of ruling. You follow?
Now somebody
A lot of
asked
people
something
have.
about mhm. Go ahead, sir.
No, I'm saying a lot of people have unalived themselves. And listen, I'm an administrator in a big XJW group, and it's very heartbreaking. Most of the people are just trying to survive and going through
Mm,
PTSD from that religion, and they
mhm,
never get over it.
mm,
And it's
mm.
it's it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
A question I had is alcoholism seems to be something I've heard a lot that is prevalent in this organization. Can you speak to that? Do you think that there's a problem with alcoholism, or did you see that when you were there?
When I first came to Bethel, I worked in the cleaning department, so I would do the trash routes, and we would pick up trash. That was a part of the training. And so the way it works is we have this thing called seniority. So if a guy had 40 years at Bethel, he probably had another 5 of pioneering before he came. So he has 45 years. So that's how you get to stay in a nicer building. So now, whereas when I came in, I had it was 3 of us in a room. Um, and in the building, there's probably 1,000 rooms with a community bathroom on each floor, maybe 2 community bathrooms on each floor. So basically, we're just being herded like cattle, right? But if you had a lot of seniority, then you could have a nice room, 2 bedrooms with a bathroom in your room. So all of the people who had been there a long time had a lot of seniority. They would have those buildings. And in those buildings, when we would do the trash run on Monday morning, there would be so much alcohol that you would think that a herd of cattle drunk it all. It was just that much alcohol. So if you, on my channel, Watching the World, I did a video and it may have had some effect with the organization, I'm not sure. But the governing body member that was recently resigned, he's on one of my videos. We show him in a local over here in, I believe, Warwick, New York. He's at the liquor store buying so much alcohol. It's on video, and he's one of the top dogs in that religion. So that created a big spark online in the XJW community, showing that alcoholism and buying. Why do you need all this alcohol for? So, and that's actually the guy who left.
Now,
And
one
so
thing
with the young guy, oh, go ahead.
with the elderly people, right? Now, because I don't know if it's still the same way, but let's say somebody needed blood or something, y'all were not allowed to get blood from anybody. Like, how did that process go when people were sick and they really needed help, but y'all were not allowed to do certain things?
Right. In the Bible, it says to abstain from blood. They use the scripture, abstain from blood. So it's very complex to where you cannot have a blood transfusion. In fact, all Jehovah Witnesses who are baptized would have a healthcare proxy and carry a no blood card. So in the event of an accident, you could present or they could find your card and know that you would not take blood. If you go back to the 80s, there was an article, or actually a whole watchtower put out, and I saw it as a child, where all these young people that died because they
Mm,
refused to have a blood transfusion.
mm,
So, myself, I was touched deeply by this subject because my mother had breast cancer.
mm,
After my grandmother passed, my mother got breast cancer 2 years after that.
mm,
And she basically needed a blood transfusion. She couldn't have it. Because I was a Betholite, I had Brooklyn, I had the legal department involved. It was messy, but my mother died, and one
Oh,
of the big factors of that was not
oh,
having a blood transfusion. So for me, it's a
mm,
very sore spot.
I'm sorry to hear that. Mm,
hmm
Wow.
So I'm an advocate for various reasons.
So with all that, so with all these rules, with all that alcoholism going on, um, like how did they stop a lot of like? I mean, there had to been because drinking kind of begets some types of behavior. You understand? Like, if you get too drunk, you might start doing things that would get you shunned. So, was there like a group of people that would like kind of hide things so that people didn't find out to get shunned, or like how was they able to get that drunk and not do stuff that get you shunned?
For the most part, what I learned being at the headquarters is that a lot of people have dark secrets and they have a lot of things that they're hiding. And so typically the people would be disfellowship because they were caught. And then if you're caught and you're not confessing your sin, then you're looked at being a hardcore sinner. And the brothers are less, that committee that we had previously discussed, they're less lenient to want to maybe instead of just fellowshipping you, to give you some sort of light reproving. So, what I saw, one day we had 12 guys that were kicked out and read off. All were disfellowship in one day. And those remaining, everyone would call them the Dirty Dozen because they announced 12 guys. And so basically, I'll give you the rundown of that. There was a brother that before he came to Bethel, he was having relations with a young sister in the congregation, right? So the minute the airplane hit the World Trade Centers, she thought the end of the world was coming. She went to the local brothers down in Alabama and told them that she had committed these sins with him and he was at Bethel. They called Bethel, talked to him, and he confessed his sins. And then he told on because a bunch of us had all went on this cruise. This was back out when R. Kelly and Jay Z, the best of both worlds, and everybody was partying and so forth. So a lot of people went on a cruise together, and a lot of alcoholism happened. And this brother was involved. He was there, and he went back and told on everybody, and they started pulling everybody in. And this brother started saying he slept with this girl, and this one got drunk. And then they found out a lot of the Bethelites were going to this strip club in Newburgh called Pleasure Island and sleeping with the strippers. So they knocked out 12 in one day, and then they came back 2 days later and knocked out another five. And then in Brooklyn, they knocked out, when I say knocked out, they disfellowshipped a host of like 15 guys in Brooklyn. So it spread like wildfire that basically all these guys were pretending to be holy, but at night they were getting turned up. So that gives you an
All this
idea that
gossiping
we're
and
all humans.
this is
What's that?
I said all this gossiping and telling on each other, and that's gossiping
Yeah.
almost
yeah,
like
but hold
like.
on, hold on, hold on.
Well, let me finish what I was saying. Hold on.
Uh-huh.
I was saying all this gossiping and going back. Oh, he did this. It just creates a backbiting thing where you can't trust nobody. What kind? How do they keep members in the church if they're disfellowshipping everybody and everybody's backbiting each other and like at some point it's like it seems like it just creates an environment of just people just you
A
can't trust them.
hostile, a hostile
A
environment.
hostile environment. How like
Yeah, you're taught to tell on others.
Yeah, that's what they supposed
One
to
of
do,
my
though.
Yeah, you're supposed to report anything. If you don't report it,
Exactly.
you you get in trouble too.
Okay. What I wanted to ask was how were the children treated, and at any point in time where they're separated from their parents?
Well, the children are treated kindly for the most part. I think they're treated the way children should be treated, but there are deviant men and also women who prey on the children. So people who prey on children have a way of trying to get the children away from the parents. And so that's why the elders who are in high position would say, "Hey, I'm going to work with your child in field service."
Mm-hmm.
And then they start grooming the child. And next thing you know, you have these weird relationships like where Michael Jackson's having these kids over to his house. But, there's a bit of respect and honor and trust that comes. It's kind of like when Madoff took the money from the church people, they trusted him, right? This is the guy who tells you about God and the kingdom and he loves you, right? So that's how they get these children away from their parents and these atrocious things happen. So that's why they have these huge court cases now where they're paying millions of
Mm-hmm.
dollars for these elders who were doing disgusting things. And
Yeah.
it's still
Right.
happening, by the way.
You
Yeah.
had a few like celebrity people that was in your organization. Did they get special treatment like Scientology? You know how Scientology, like they kind of had to bring them up to the ranks to get more money out of them and stuff like that, and they became higher ups. Did like celebrities become like really important in the organization? The ones that were
Yeah.
celebrities?
So, right. So, as you know, Michael Jackson had a background with Jehovah's Witnesses, but I was able to meet Prince. And in my own personal experience with Prince, I realized ultimately, and I really it's heartbreaking. I began to understand why he came to his demise when it came to these the overdose. Right? I don't know if I could
Alleged.
say that on here.
Alleged. Yeah.
Alleged overdose. But he had a serious health problem with his double hips,
Okay.
and the blood
Like,
factor was a big factor in the surgery that he needed. So it was going to be very risky for him. So what people tend to do sometimes when they fear having a blood transfusion or what have you, they tend to lean on medication, just trying to deal with pain and things of that issue. So, but when it came to Prince, a lot of exceptions were made as far as his garb and things of that sort when he visited Bethel. I saw for myself because of who he was. Any other brother visiting would have been asked to change his attire.
Do you think that happened with Michael Jackson too? Because he was on painkillers as well. So because and he
Well,
had
he
to
was
pay
far
from all
removed.
the and stuff he was doing, right?
M- Michael Jackson was far removed from the Jehovah Witnesses, but I think he still, throughout his course, this is how it works in all of these churches and religions. If you're tithing and you're giving a lot of money, people look the other way, and so that's what it basically boils down to. But let's see, Serena Williams. Um, what's this other guy that plays? I think he plays on Empire. I can't think of his name. He's coming up with all these video. What is it? Terrence Howard? Yeah, Terrence Howard. There's a lot of people that um, Tiffany Haddish, the girl on the View. A lot of them were ex Jehovah Witnesses.
Oh,
wow.
Biggie, Jay Z. All these guys were on the theocratic ministry schools. So you just have to wonder, did they have some influence with their way of delivery and their flowing or whatever from their background of, being a Jehovah Witness? Because it's very intense. It's a great program. I think it's awesome as a kid to be up there, just able to learn how to present yourself on stage and whatnot.
so the people that got disfellowshipped when that whole spread happened when they disfellowshipped a whole bunch of people. So you're in Bethel or you came from Virginia. Did they just say you're disfellowshipped and you're out on the street, or did they like fly you back home, or is it just like
Oh, yeah, right.
kicked out the front door?
So they get you to the nearest airport, or if you have your car, they help you pack it. And at that point, when your verdict is rendered, and I used to work in the department where we would take care of these matters, so I would be the go-to guy to get people out. So immediately we would start to assemble all of their stuff. There would be two elders that would escort them at all times, just like most companies do, though. It runs like a corporation, and they would get you to your car, and you can't come back on the premises. They would finish out your books if you owed money or if you had some money due. Some brothers, most brothers didn't have cars. You're getting $90 a month. A lot of them came in at 19.
Mm-hmm.
So,
So they take them to the airport, and then what? Like, do they give them a ticket, or they just take them to the airport?
well, give them some sort of probably. I don't know how that part worked because that didn't happen to me. But I take it if the guy didn't have money, they want him out of there, and they're going to send him back home to wherever he came from, and maybe they'll have the congregation balance out that last ticket, or maybe they just write it off and chalk it up to the game. I'm not sure.
But they actually, when they're charging you out, they have you stop by a area that says, "Oh, you owe this money this money to us, so you can pay that off
Oh
before you
yeah,
leave."
oh yeah. You have to balance out. They listen. They have. I'll never forget one of the guys who allegedly was doing the bribing. When he died, him and the other brother, they owned so many properties down in Brooklyn because they were wheelers and dealers. These guys
Mm-hmm.
were old school, right? But um, from what I heard the guy say on a television program, he said Watchtower came in number two on the list of corporations who made the most money. That's how much money Jehovah's Witnesses were making.
Behind the
And this brother
Mormons.
said, right. So the brother said to the reporter, he says, but we have free labor. So actually, we're number one. So you see what I'm saying? In the background, you think you're
And
doing a
that
great deed for God, but ultimately you're doing free labor. Think about it. 10 years, I did 10 years, 45 hours a week. What kind of price tag can you put on that? And in my mind, I was doing it for God.
Mm.
wow.
And
So,
now think about this. When I was at Walk Hill, we had 3,000 people. Patterson had another 3,000, and Brooklyn had 5,000. That's just one branch here in New York. And then we also had other branches, Kingdom Farm, and all these other little places. And people are coming in on tour buses. They're donating money. You have celebrities donating money, congregation donating money. And it got so bad that even if they changed it up so that when people would pay off their Kingdom Hall, right, because they would give them a loan, charge them interest or whatever, when they pay off the Kingdom Hall, now they want the publishers to donate per publisher. So it's just a money racket. But if you're doing it with God in view, you don't often get a chance to understand and see the nature of how they really operate.
so with your heartbreak from after your mother, and how she was treated, was that sort of kind of becoming your breaking point?
Dealing with that situation alone was a breaking point, I would say. It was tough because I love my mother dearly. I also love my grandmother. She passed right
Right,
before
right,
that.
right,
But when you stop and think about it, especially I'm a country guy, right? Coming out of Virginia, I don't have any major resources. And the way they operate is if a guy was out playing basketball and he gets hurt, then you got to go back home. I knew a guy who's working in the kitchen and he got bleach in his eye. Within 2 weeks, they're sending him back home. So see your whole life now. What they told you not to go to college, right? So what are these
right.
guys going to do? So you're
Exactly.
basically there, and so that's why they came up with the layoff because so many people were there just because they were afraid to go back. It's like a guy in prison. Some of these guys want to stay in prison because they fear the real world, having to go get a real job and start a family and all these different things when They had this thing where if you were there 5 years, it's like a silent thing to where you could be there forever. Basically, you were a lifer. So once a person made 5 years, a lot of guys didn't even want to get married because when you get married and you're trying to bring in a wife, now you have to go back through the application process with your potential wife, your
Wow.
fiance, and you could
Uh-huh.
be rejected. So a lot of guys says, "Hey, I'm gonna stay here and just be a lifer because I love being here so much, or I fear leaving." And so that was the dilemma that they came up with, and I think that's why they did the layoff. Like, how do you lay off a free worker? You know what I'm saying? It's like a weird thing, right?
Right.
But it goes to show when you go to the dynamics of Jehovah's Witnesses, in the background, they're investing in major companies. There are some people online that picked up where they allegedly have invested in company, any company that can make a dime. I mean, it's a smart company. They're bringing in all this money, um, and if you are astute with money, you know your money has to work for you. So, but they tell us as Jehovah
Oh,
Witnesses to do not follow the world, but
yeah.
believe me, they use the world to the full.
Now let me ask you a question. Now, being that it's a religion, right? So did they fall under the 50C13 church? Did they have to pay taxes or they
No
did not have to
taxes.
pay taxes?
They don't pay taxes.
Yeah. So for that's including the properties.
Correct.
Okay.
So the money is hand over fist.
So they get to keep it all. Wow. So
Right.
because I know a lot of the big corporations, especially like the Scientologists, being that they are a religion, they fall under that branch. They have so many. They don't. Some of them is buildings are just sitting there, not even being of use. It's just they're holding the property, right? But
Right.
I,
Right.
so yeah,
I think Jared Kushner bought those buildings, a lot of those buildings in Brooklyn, allegedly, and it was $1 billion. I mean, they money is not an issue, but recently they started to ask for a lot of money, and they said that they were having some money issues. There's some videos, I think, or even on my channel, they mentioned that. So you never know. I think it's because of the court cases. One case alone, the girl was awarded 26 million
oh,
out of California. I think her name is Conti. Her last name is Conti. You can look up that case. It's actually on my channel too, where she got that. That's one case where they checked out 26 million.
Man,
mm,
you know what's so crazy? Like I'm. This is really amazing to hear this because I never knew it was this intricate of what I just knew that they knocked on doors and tried to give you the. I didn't realize it was this huge of a organization. And
Right.
I'm wondering, is there a family? You know how you have the Colgate family, you have the Crest family, the Hilton family, is there like a whoever the main person that
the
started that
heads,
that
the
the,
heads,
I'm talking about the person that created this system where his offspring
right?
are like in control, like are the chairpersons. I'm not sure if this is even a public company. It probably still
Right.
is private, so I
So
don't know.
I could
No,
tell
it's
you a
public.
story. A friend of mine was getting kicked out because he was flirting with another man's wife at Bethel. And so he came to see me on his last couple of days. I was kind of his advisor because I was actually going through some situations myself with them because I was in an accident and I was battling with them for care. It was a mess, you know, that happened during my last 3 years. Um, but he was the assistant to one of the highest guys at the of the branch, and he told me, and he had some documentation, and I tried to get him to let me take pictures of it. But he was expressing to me that he was like, "Did you know that it's not Jehovah Witnesses that own this religion?" And I'm like, "What?" And he had the documentation there. I couldn't get it from him, but it opened up my mind. And I'm like, well, that makes sense to why these layoffs are happening, because if you have a guy that's not religious, he's looking at the bottom line. I'm like, why would you? Let me give it to you this way. and I saw it with my own eyes. I heard the first talks when they were doing the layoff. You have a guy there with a wife. They've both been at Bethel 30 years. She doesn't have any kids. She wanted kids, but just to be in her assignment with her husband, she forewent all of that and thought that they were going to die at Bethel and be lifers because there's a bit of clout that comes with it. You get to fly out and he gives talks in Aruba, and then the local congregation look at you as being like a celebrity. They treat you nice. Some of these guys, um, I think allegedly Larry Graham bought one of the brothers a car. That's alleged, but there's a lot of perks that come with being a Bethelite. So you have this couple been there 30 years, don't have kids, and then all of a sudden you're coming to them and saying, "Hey, you're out of here. You're laid off." Can you imagine? I know one couple in particular where his wife divorced him within 2 weeks of them leaving. So
Wow.
it's real life, and
Wait,
most
wait,
people they just think
they
holy,
might have
holy, holy, but it's
they might have left all their house and stuff to become a Bethelite. So when they put them out, they just put them out on the street. That's crazy.
well, a lot of them were sent out to be special pioneers, but that's just like a soft landing because they figure once you get there, and then they'll change. Once you get in, see, this is what I learned about the organization. They'll give you a soft landing to make it seem like they took care of you. So this is what happened to one couple I know of. They made them special pioneers, so now they sent them out to live in a Kingdom Hall out in Ohio. So now they get a little stipend each month. They have to get a certain amount of hours and do this and that. Then within 2 months, now the friends are saying, "Oh well, the organization took care of you." And then 2 months down the line, they pull the cord on that or whatever. And now he has to go out. He's in his 50s or 60s, no 401k, very little money in the bank, a raggedy car, the same suits he's been wearing for 20 years. And you got to start all over, you know? And you know what they say? They say Jehovah's going to take care of you. So
And
that's just the nature of the beast.
depending on uh if you had kids or not before you became a Jehovah Witness, a lot of them shunt their children and they don't know where they at.
And
So
a lot of them
start,
don't care where they're
yeah,
at.
mm,
These people don't care. It's a brick wall there.
yeah,
And like I said, if you turn your back, when a person, it's a strange thing, and I do a lot of time research, and it's a strange thing how this brainwashing works. It's tremendous. It's hard to rethink a lot of things that you've been taught over your life. It's very hard. And that's why even now, I struggle with certain things, such as Christmas. I mean, I celebrate it now, but it's not like you know, I get a weird feeling about it, or a certain type of music. Like we couldn't listen to R. Kelly, obviously, but back when before he got in trouble, you couldn't listen to these popular artists, R. Kelly, Jay-Z. You shouldn't be listening to any of these things or whatever. So even now to this day, just listening to rap sometimes, or I might find myself singing a Jehovah Witness Kingdom melody, because I spent all my life being one. These things are sometimes embedded in your head. You think about, or like even going into a church. I used to get to it'd be scary to go into a church for a funeral, you know. So even to this day, to go into a church, you get a weird feeling like, oh, this is false religion. You know what I mean? So a lot of people that I see in the groups that I'm an administrator in, a lot of them are struggling because brainwashing of Jehovah's Witnesses and any other religion is very, very tough.
and it's very common. So walk us through.
What real quick though, I
Uh,
just pulled it up because we were just talking about the stock market, the business of it all. So I was trying
Right.
to see, is Jehovah Witnesses church on the stock market? It says no, the church is not, but the Watchtower Society, which is a corporation owned by Jehovah Witnesses, was listed as one of the New York's 40 richest corporations in 2001 with revenues over 950 million.
and Watchtower owns the Kingdom Hall, so that's what you
It,
got to understand.
it,
So that's who I was talking about when the guy says, "Hey, we're number two." Well, no, really, we're number one because we got free labor. So that's just who I'm talking about.
yeah, and they have to separate it to get the 501c3 DJ. So the church can't be a corporate. I mean, it's a corporation, but it's tax free.
They're a
So
religious.
right,
Explain to
they're
you,
under the right,
they are a religious order. Yeah,
right.
A
So
religious
it,
order. What does that
it
mean? Wait, hold on.
that
Wait a minute. What do you
means
mean religious order?
it means it can't
look
make
up.
it can't make profit. So everything is a donation.
No.
Right, put in religious order.
It's a religious order.
Oh, it's a group of men who live under religious vows. The vows commonly taken are to relinquish all possessions and personal authority, vows of poverty and obedience, and not to engage in vow of chastity.
That we're talking about the money part. The money part is what we're talking about. They have to
I
separate
don't
that so they
think
can
no,
get tax free everything.
no, that's what
Right,
that's called a 501c3. I'm talking about the business of how they have it structured to where they can get this free labor under the corporation, but then the chairpersons of the watchtower can be secretly running the religious company.
right.
You know what I'm saying?
I
That's
got you.
that's the problem. I find that I don't know if people are a religious order is a lineage of communities and organizations of people who live in some way set apart from society in accordance to their specific devotion.
Hmm.
So
So
yeah,
let me just show you here. See here? This
Joe,
is you probably can't see it, but
yeah, I'll show.
this is my Bethel vow of poverty.
Here,
This is a
stop.
family vow, and I'll just give you a couple quick points. Number one, to live in the common family lifestyle that's traditionally existed at Bethel. Number two, to volunteer my services to do whatever work I'm assigned to me. Number three, to be submissive to the theocratic arrangement at Bethel. Number four, to devote my full time efforts to Bethel assignments. Number five, to abstain from employment without permission. Number six, to turn over to the common treasury of the local religious organization all income received from any work from any personal efforts in excess of my necessary living expenses unless released from the vow. Number seven, to renounce any claim for more than decent support for the time I am a member of the Bethel family. Number eight, to accept meals, lodging, and expense allowance the same as all other members of the Bethel family, regardless of the level of responsibility or the value of my efforts. And number nine, to abide by the principles that appear in the manual, dwelling together in unity, as the manual may be amended from time to time. And right here, I have 3 copies of that. So that just gives you an idea of
Okay,
this vow of poverty.
that sounds like slave, not a vow of poverty, but a vow of slavery, a vow of slavery. And then you have this is a way for a corporate for stakeholders because if the watchtower is public, a publicly traded organization with over 950 million billion whatever it is in money and stocks and whatever, and it has chair people, and then you have these people in this religious that this company owns this nonprofit organization that's a church, and people are working in a church that have taken a vow of this order of chastity, of poverty, or whatever, and everything. It's like a vow of slavery. Then it's almost like it's basically modern, like really modern day slavery.
Yes.
So I was
Wow.
a part of that.
Wow. Wow.
So it's a lot. It's a lot.
And
You
and and and
have
we're
to
so
be
it's allowed to be happening free labor under the guise of God, and
Yeah.
worshiping. Wow.
So
Hmm.
you have to ask, where does all the money go,
Oh, that's coming.
right?
Go ahead.
And that's the big mystery. Where does all that money go? And like that brother said, it's all free labor. So
Do
it
you
makes
know
you
where the
think that
money goes?
there's
Wait, I can't hear
no,
him.
no, but
Do you
I
think
says
that
no.
these people are involved with any kind of politics or like
Well, of course.
like law?
Yeah, I mean, you're never gonna know the inside track of the real deal. But you do know that right now they're taking on a lot of heat throughout the world, so much so that they had to allegedly bring in an outside organization to help them understand and how to make changes to retain more people because they're losing so many people being disfellowship, people just leaving, people not joining anymore. So that's why now you can wear a beard, women can wear
Yeah.
pants. They're softening that up, and who knows where they're going to take this in the future to try to make it a more day-to-day appealing religion.
We're at the part of the of this live where we invite some people from the audience that have questions to talk. We have a guy Blue that just came up. Sugar, did you drop your link in your chat yet?
No, not yet. But go ahead.
It's in the private chat. Okay, Blue, you had a question or comment?
Well, yeah, one thing, if you can, I would, if I'm not sure if the brother is cool with it, but I'm kind of sharp with the Bible. I know you said you were still helping people come out. I like to get a chance to go over some scriptures with you one day. If you can, get my number for DJ Genesis and give me a call,
All
because
right, can you just
yeah, I
can you
definitely
give me a just give me a quick shot? I mean, maybe take a minute or two if the ladies are okay with it, just to let me hear what you got a little bit. I'm not gonna get into it all now, but I just want to see what you got.
Oh, you talking about as far as the scriptures?
Yeah, what's one of your what's your go-to?
Well, one of them is even dealing with dealing with from Michael being Jesus, or Jesus being Michael the archangel. Um, that's one of my that we could deal with. Um, as
Okay.
far as uh, what was one of the major ones? So you got me on the spot. Let me think about one that's
That's okay. All right. That's good enough. I just want to get an idea where you're at with it. That's cool.
yeah.
I'm very versed when it comes to that, so I'm ready to go. Just get my number.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know,
On my
uh,
channel, I break down a lot of scriptures where there's mistakes in the Bible and all that type of stuff. So you might like to check it out. I think you would appreciate my angle.
yeah, Blue
Okay.
used to be a he used to be a Hebrew Israelite. A lot of our people that
Oh,
are
okay.
in our audience are either have had experience with a lot of different religious, cult like organizations or whatever, or are still in cults or maybe whatever. So
Well,
this is a this is
is he?
I think
i-
it's a
i-
place of dialogue. It's a place of
Is
dialogue.
he's an ex? Is he's an ex? Well, he's still Hebrew,
No,
but
no, I'm not a ex J Dub, but I did study my. I was in a relationship with somebody, and so I studied all of the material,
okay.
But
all of the pamphlets, everything.
he used to be a Hebrew Israelite though, right?
Right. I came out
So
of Christianity. I was a New Testament Israelite. I came out of the New Testament. I became an Old Testament Israelite only, and then I came out of that. I seen
Oh,
idolatry
Are
and the
you
whole thing.
oh, okay,
are
but
you in
before
religion
we,
period or no?
You could kind of say I kind of started one. I think basically we in the works of because I think religion is still important whenever you build creating a culture, but I think the most important thing about religion or spirituality is that it has to be connected directly to the people, right? Like that's just like when you was talking about Abraham um lying lied to the Pharaoh, right? And they told you that that was okay for him to lie to the Pharaoh. They weren't necessarily wrong on that. And what you'll see is contradictions, because you'll see things like voodoo being practiced in the Bible, and it's okay when it's done to YHWH, right? The same practice. Even when you get down to, I don't know if you read about the and the Thummim, right? The and the Thorim, where the two stone tablets that the priests would have on their chest plate, and when they needed an answer from God, they would roll these stones down, and based on how they light, which one lit up would give you an answer. Another example of it, right, where they had the law of adultery, right? Remember, they would take the wife to the priest. The priest
Right.
would make a concoction of a drink, and she would have to drink that drink. Now, if she drunk it and didn't die, that means she didn't commit adultery. But if she
Right.
drunk it and she died, then she did commit adultery. So you see the same practices that you will see in other cultures, but it's only okay when it's done to Yahweh.
Now, but before we go off, right? Let's ask questions. Let's just finish with the last part of him, and what was the last straw and when did you leave?
Well, it was very complex, and I'll try to give you the short of it because we've been rolling for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I was in my work assignment. So all these things are happening and I'm awakening. There's just so much going on. Then they start to change their rules a lot. So for instance, I'll give you a personal touch. I was sitting at morning worship. Remember, we get up in the morning at 7. And the big thing for me, I always wanted to at least have a kid. And, when I was a Jehovah Witness, I lived it to the fullest, right? So I never did engage in activity, intercourse or what have you. I really lived by the rules. So for me, I'm sitting there like, oh, in this system, because these guys are so old and they said that some of these guys are going to be here when the end comes. I'm like, I'm never going to get married and have a family and, I'm going to die a virgin, that type of deal. Weird, just thinking just about life in general. And those guys all died off, you know? So now I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, what in the world? Why are these guys dying if the end is supposed to be here already? So it started to get real crazy. They started opening up all these corporations. They created a branch committee and they started to develop the religion as though the religion would continue to go on and they needed leaders. And so now we see, now look, we're now 15 years down the line and you see all the big changes and now they're putting in younger guys who can potentially live much longer because the end hasn't come, and now a lot of people are doubtful about the end of the world and all of that. So all of these things happened throughout my 10 year. But one day they sent me to Brooklyn for an assignment and I was in a bad car accident, almost killed me, and I needed surgeries, all sorts of, I was really messed up. They wouldn't pay for it. And I'm like, wait a minute. They didn't want to contribute. So ultimately, one of my aunts had to get on the phone calling, like, yo, you don't let my nephew die up there. He gave you guys 7, 8 years already. And my sister came up and she was trying to. So I needed back surgery so bad. And they told me no. And a friend of mine, who was a very close friend of mine, he was in the writing department. He invented the Young People Ask book and he was working on a lot of the videos. He needed brain surgery and he was gonna he I had went out with him previously, him and his wife. He needed stereotactic surgery where they do for brain surgery in difficult places. They pinpoint the cancer and remove it. It was $100,000. They told him no. He's been in the writing department 30 years. Can you imagine that? You get 30 years and they're not going to pay. They said these are righteous funds. Well, aren't
Mm-hmm.
these righteous funds supposed to cover Bethelites too? So they were. So they wouldn't pay for my surgeries. And so then the doctor came to me and said, listen, man, your religion has failed you. We don't know what we're going to do with you. It was a mess. So I fought it because there was another case in Brooklyn where this chiropractor sister was getting on a shuttle and she twisted her back and she had to sue the society, and I read that online. So then I'm fighting with the brothers and the governor. They sent the top dogs after me because I was sharp and I was getting all my secular facts together. Legally, I'm online, just really on top of my game, learning my rights. And then I realized, wait, we're in a religious order. You don't have workman's comp. So wait a minute. So then I tell the brothers in the big league guys, I'm like, listen, if you guys are not going to cover us with insurance, why on earth would you let us buy this cheap insurance for our cars driving to the meetings on Thursday nights and Sundays, knowing that we don't have any backing? And then if we do get hurt, you're not going to cover anything. And I said, if anything, you should tell these mothers that are sending their sons out here like mine and thinking they're doing a great deed. You should tell them that keep another policy on your kids so they have some backup at least for a couple of years if they get hurt because they're leaving you out here on their own. So when the brothers came and talked to me, I told them, I said, listen, I do not hear the voice of Christ. And they told me, well, this is business. And when he told me, when
What?
the governing body member told me this is business, he lost me forever. And I told him, I said,
Oh.
this is what we're going to do. And I'm telling you, just like I told him, I
Mm-hmm.
says, we're going to hope for the best, but we're going to plan for the worst. And I said, the rest is up to you. And so then they had me there. I was in the infirmary at Bethel, but they had me in a different zone because trying to get surgeries and just, I was really bad. I ended up having like neck surgery, back surgery, shoulder surgery. I was banged up pretty bad. Um, so when that happened and they told me straight out that this is business now, it's not a holy situation, and that these are dedicated funds, and we can't really, we don't have a system for helping the Bethelites that get hurt. So that's when it just really opened my eyes to the religion being a business.
Man, they
And then
had
they started.
they were worth 950 million in 2001. I don't know what the number is today. So I'm trying to figure out what would it have hurt them to pay for someone's surgery that's dedicated at the top of the level of the organization. That is insane.
That
And
wasn't part
they
of the business.
why don't they have hospitals like the 7 Day Adventist? At least they got hospitals in 7 Day Adventist. You know what I'm saying? Where is this money going? You're right. Where's the money going to? Because it's not going to the people. Where is it going to? They don't have no
That
Right.
they
insurance.
claim it goes to it's for the printing of the booklets and the pamphlets and stuff that they send out.
And probably the airplanes and stuff to take them in different places.
Do they
Okay,
have their own
so
airport? They got
So
their
let
own
me.
private
Let
jets.
me. I need to speak to people who are going to be watching this video, who are Jehovah's Witnesses. So there's a key part here.
yes.
Um, so ultimately, because of it was a outside accident, I was awarded some funds, right? And prior to that, they really strung me down to a contract that I basically had no choice but to sign. And I don't know if you're familiar with how cases work and so forth, but ultimately your attorney does all the negotiating, right?
Hmm.
So my attorney was negotiating with them. You know what they did to me? They said, "Forget your attorney. You better come to this judicial meeting, or we're gonna excommunicate you." And I didn't come to the meeting, and that's where our relationship came to an end. So that's why I was basically outed, because I said, "Listen, you have to go. It's hostile now anyway, but you really need to work this through with the attorney." So I have all the documentation that I haven't released yet, but I will, because this is the first time I'm ever telling my story, and most people have been asking me my story.
And thank you
But
so
you'll
much.
see the letter. You'll see the letters where my attorneys, they write me letters, they write my attorney letters. You'll see the dates, and then you'll see my attorney write back and give them an offer. Then you'll see them call a judicial committee saying, "Forget your attorney, come talk to us." And I didn't participate, and then you'll see history. And I gave 10 years. So my fight now is much bigger than Jehovah Witnesses. I don't really think a lot about Jehovah Witnesses. My issues is just with how man has been controlled through the Bible. It's much
Mm-hmm.
bigger than that. But a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people are brainwashed, and you got the Muslim fighting with the Christian. It's a mess, and
Mm-hmm.
then you have science, and it's very complicated. But these religions are businesses that are taking advantage, and you really need to figure that out before you waste a lot of time in your life, like I did, and just to find out that they have a real truth, and it's not what you want. You
And you
know,
know what? I think that the government knew what they were doing by separating churches and state, so that these organizations could be able to do modern day slavery and have people work for them and build up their wealth through these churches tax free, and not have any accountability for the people that are working for them nor insurance. Because if the government was involved, they would have to have legislation to make sure that they have to be under like some kind of compensation
Well,
plan.
technically, there it's the same. They together. It's just that they just made a different division, but it's all the same, different side of the coin.
No, I'm talking
right?
about the fact
It's
that,
I
let me,
know what you're saying, but it's the
what am I saying?
same.
What am I saying?
You understand what I'm saying, right? He understands what I'm saying.
No, I'm what I'm talking about is the fact that it's not being um that because the government has separated it, so it's allowed it to go without any kind of regulations. It's
Checks and
unregulated.
balances,
Checks
checks and
and
balances. Yeah.
balances. That's the word. That's the word. Checks and
Right.
balances don't exist, and so they're
Hmm.
allowed to use people for labor, and it makes the corporation, which is the church, more money in the name of God or whatever. But then there's nothing that's I think it's just messed up how, and then you could wrap that around another bigger corporation, and all this is really
Right.
big
But
feeding into an even
the
larger corporation.
the
You know,
government know what they're doing. It's all the same thing.
I, I don't think nobody works for the government for free though, except for the people that.
No, but it's the same owner. Put like that.
You know
So
what it is. You know what,
the
when
same.
people go to prison and they get
So,
punished, they work for free for the government. You know what I'm saying? But
so see the government. So let me explain to you. The government, they have this system in place, but they think that the religion is going to do the right thing. Unless somebody comes forward, like myself or a group of people, and tell them, "Hey, they're misusing this
they,
arrangement," they're
that's
never
what
really going to know.
that's what I'm saying.
And so that,
People
and
need to come
so,
out
so
the work.
like in my particular case, right? I got into a major accident, and while I was at work, and then they lied about it and tried to say I have it all on documentation where the judge reprimanded them for trying to say that I wasn't at work, and I had my vacation notice and everything all on file. But it's a tough situation for me to get to that point and first try to seek some workman's comp or something like that, and then for the state to say, well, you're a part of a religious order. And you're like, what's a religious order? See, now you're learning, you see what I'm saying? After you
But
Mm,
work
you
your
signed
10
the
years or whatever you gave, now you're learning like you have no rights, and you're going to be, they're like, well, do you have some family to go stay with? And like my mom and my grandma died, like, what am I going to do? So I said, we're going to have to work this out. So I was
so
one, most people would not have done what I did. So
did their lawyers come out like, no, he can't do nothing based on this contract he signed? He took an oath that that, and then if you even would have gotten any money from that accident, did you have to give that money to them because you signed a
that's what
contract
they were.
here
Right.
saying
So it got real complicated. See, I'm learning. See what I'm saying? When you go in, right? Especially God is at the top. You got Jehovah, Jesus. You in the watchtower. The watchtower is talking about love, and we got to be here for each other. So you're going in and you're warm, and like you think everybody at the table is your friend. You're signing this vow of poverty, but you're like, well, this has to be a great arrangement. It's just naivety. You're so young or whatever, which is ultimately I take responsibility for is my life, though. But you think it's going to be sweet, and if something happens, the brother's going to take care of you. You commence to give 5, 10, whatever years you put in, and then you find out that they created the system against you.
uh-huh.
They built the system against you, and they use the
Yep.
government
Thank
religious
you.
order,
Yep.
because even in the Catholic Church, right? That's what they do when there's these
Mm-hmm.
allegations, right?
Mm-hmm.
They move these guys from one place to the next because they're under that religious order. So they have certain rules, and you wonder why, like, why they don't get rid of these? They move them,
Uh,
whatever, right? But they're working the system. Well, the Jehovah Witnesses did the same, but I learned the hard way. Yeah.
Wow. And so, man, so the money that you got out of your settlement for that accident, you had to give it all to the church.
A great portion, yeah.
Wow. Because you took
so
that
And
oath. That
that's
that
all
and they
that's all I can say about it.
didn't pay for your health. You could have took the money e- to help with
for the
your back.
accident.
When you get in an accident like that, you're gonna be having problems probably for the rest of your life, pain, whatever, and need medical. So they take that from you, and you have no recourse of if you need things down the line, if you need surgery down the line. They don't give a fuck. They just want he got this money. They come flying in. No, he got to give it to us because he's part of their
You
religious
heard what
order.
I read, right? You heard
Oh
number, what is it?
Yes, yes, sir.
Number
my god.
7. You see number 7 here, right? So that tells you everything. But as a young
Yes,
kid at
sir.
19, I mean, you guys
Yes.
must understand that at 19,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going in, I'm reading this. This doesn't hit hard as it did after I gave my life. You know what I mean? It hit different after my accident. So
So, how
yeah.
long have you been gone from the JW?
I'd say about um, about 15 years now.
So, how has life been for you since you've been gone? You say you've been, you're still reading, you're still coming out of it. So, how has life been for you?
Life has been sweet. I feel so fortunate that I was able to wake up in this lifetime, unlike a lot of family members who I've left behind, who are just so, there's no hope of, you know, experiencing awareness and waking up and becoming woke. So it's
Are,
a blessing for me. I was able to become very successful, and I'm enjoying life, and
what
I'm
about
helping people. I'm in the,
what What about your family? You still have
yeah, my family.
blood
A
relatives.
lot of relatives that are in Jehovah's Witnesses, and they would not talk to me. I had to end up having another accident in 2015, and one of my aunts, who's a Jehovah Witness, she called me when had just had a very painful neck surgery, maybe around 2020, and she called me. She says, "Hey, I heard you had a major surgery." I said, "Yeah." She says to me, "Are you back yet?" I says, "No." She says, "Oh, I would have never called you," and hung up the phone.
Wow. You know what? I was gonna man, that's I was gonna ask like what
Yeah,
stopped
I wasn't. Listen, I'm far removed. I'm in a great place in life, and I'm enjoying my life. So I'm not bitter in any way. I'm more focused on trying to wake up people. That's why I agreed to do this.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
so many people from all over the world. I've even had television stations try to get me because I'm like a 10-year Betholite, whatever. Probably one of the most vocal on my channel. So a lot of people know about Watching the World. And so, but I've never given anyone an interview. And if you go to my channel, you'll see the biggest question people have always asked: when are you going to tell your story? So this happened organically. It came to me. I didn't want to no money involved, whatever. I just wanted to tell it when my time was right. So I'm happy I told my story, and I
And
hope you
we are
guys
so thankful. We are
enjoyed it.
so
and
thankful.
you know what? Let me tell you something. How do you make sure that they can't come after you now? Like, because a contract is signed, it's signed. So, like, how is there? Did you have to sign another contract to undo it? Like, how do you make sure that they can't say, well, no, you gave it, you was part of the order, and that's for life, and you signed it in blood, and no matter what
And
you do,
oh,
come and
if
get on.
it, right, 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 right. Or when they kick
How do
you
you
out.
how do you
Right.
stop
I'm
that?
not. I'm not worried. I have attorneys. I'm very well prepared and advanced at this stage in my life. So I don't think that they want the bad publicity behind it, and they
Right.
like to sweep things under the rugs too, if they can. So, and plus, I'm still next door. They literally bought the property next door to my house
Oh, goodness
about
gracious.
7 years ago. So when I look out this window right here, it's a whole Bethel arrangement. And when they tried to do the building, I went to the town. It's all on my channel. You'll see where I went
Yeah,
to the town and I was talking about it, and they didn't really come after me. So it's.
we
Hey,
should.
listen,
Okay,
I
so
I have
Can
fact.
can
Go ahead.
every
Go ahead,
because
Blue.
yeah, go ahead, Blue.
yeah, I was gonna ask like, so when because and it's great work that you're doing. So when you are because and I'll say this, anytime you pulling religion from somebody, it's almost like pulling the carpet out from under their feet, right?
Oh man, what you
And
talking about?
so and which is why I kind of when you asked me if I'm in a religion and I was like I'm in the process of creating one, and the reason why is because and I was going to ask you what do you have to replace Jehovah Witnesses with? Like, do you have anything that you give them as an alternative, or is it just kind of them going cold turkey?
Um, that's a good question. I believe in the unknown, so you could take everybody's religion and God and their version of it and put it in a pot. At the end of the day, nobody really knows because we're new to this earth that has been here a long time, and even scientists are steadily closing the gap and closing their different theories to try to figure out how it all came to be. But how will you ever really know? And if it is revealed, it probably won't be in my lifetime. But I developed good practices. One of the good things that came out of being a Jehovah Witness is that I probably was safeguarded from a lot of things in life, maybe that could have been adverse for me had I got involved with. So I try to take the good out of everything, but I practice awareness, whereas
Yeah.
basically I observe myself in my actions. I try to enjoy happiness. Happiness is not something that you can go out and get from a female. You can't get it from the money. I've done well that way. I think it exists, and sometimes due to your certain circumstances in life, it's blocked. So the key is to be able to enjoy happiness as a being, and also having love. And I think those ingredients, because most people, if you really study human nature, you'll see that most people are driven by pain or pleasure,
Mhm.
you know, and it also boils down to love and fear. You go back to Hitler and the atrocious things that he did, you see that it all ties into fear. So just trying to understand life is what I do. I debate people on the Bible all the time. I'm currently I work with a lot of Bible scholars about the Gospels. I show people various mistakes. I enjoy doing things like that.
Oh, you
Every
and
time
Blue
I
will
see
love each
Jehovah's
other.
Witnesses,
You and Blue will love each other. He that's all. That's his whole. They got a whole debate league where they do that at. Right, Blue.
yeah. So
Yes,
that's
definitely.
where I am right now. I enjoy it, but as far as these religions, I could tell you where most of them probably how they developed. And I think most people who believe strongly have very limited knowledge about their religion. So they know enough to be brainwashed, you know.
Mhm.
But the tough part is that I had to learn this later in life after I gave. So the key is to try to create a transition for young kids and younger people so maybe they can start getting a better direction on life so they don't take the course that I did and go volunteer for the man. You follow?
Mhm.
There needs to
Would
be
you?
some kind of a program.
That's
To
just slavery. It's just another form of slavery. And you guys see, I signed my life over for the vows of poverty. So I don't
Now,
need to tell you
okay, so
anything else.
besides your YouTube channel, is there
Yeah.
any other ways or Like, what else can we find you on that we can support?
Um, well, basically, that's it. I haven't been making videos, but a lot of people are after me to get back at it, so I probably will. But I'm at such a cool place in life that, I just kind of fell into my own little world of doing things. I do a lot with finances and helping people buying houses and stuff like investment properties and fixing their credit. I don't charge for that, but I do more with the investment sector and loaning money and brokering and stuff like that. So I'm busy and I own a couple businesses and stuff like that. So I have to share a little time to go over and make some more videos and try to keep
Wait,
people because it helped a lot of people. A lot of people tell me that they to see an ex Betholite come on and give his story,
yeah.
and if they haven't heard this one, when they find this one, it's gonna be serious because this is the first time this story has ever been told.
Can I ask you one
It might be the
question?
last.
Let me ask you one question. How did it feel when you was able to say to yourself, "Happy birthday"?
Oh man, it felt wonderful. It
So,
felt wonderful. The joy of heart and to just to be free. Freedom. Because I'm gonna tell you, when you're in a religion, you think that like we used to celebrate the idea at Armageddon, we're going to be cleaning up the carcasses of the wicked and all. There's a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses that salivate over those type of thoughts of how we're going to only be the ones left, and they don't care that hey, that might be your uncle laying over there on the ground because he never became Jehovah's Witness or whatever. He was just fellowship. They don't see that part. They're just so in love with the idea, but we're going to be turning the earth into a paradise for 1,000 years, and then you're going to be tested again. It's like they don't understand like the absurdity to a lot of these different concepts in the Bible. So, um,
I,
and I
I
know that's a tough statement. A lot of people don't want to hear what I'm saying, but
so,
I'll be
so
more
what?
than happy to take
So
on
what?
anyone.
What do you do on your birthday now?
Um, what, whatever comes to mind. Usually, somebody's inviting me somewhere or trying to do something special for me, but I make sure that I'm enjoying it like it's my last every time. And
Yeah.
it's a great feeling because all my life I was never able to celebrate a
Mhm.
birthday. Think
Yeah.
about it, you can't even celebrate Mother's Day. Like,
Uh
you know what
huh.
I'm saying? Like, you can't celebrate Father's Day, Valentine's Day, you know what I'm saying? You can't give it's just it's amazing that you're really living in a weird, twisted world. And then, like for instance, some of the issues, and I want to make this point. When you go to Deuteronomy, you'll see in the Bible it condones slavery. I'll debate your best guy any day of the week.
Correct.
Okay. It also, when it comes to women and young women, the atrocious thing that we've been talking about, the Bible has guidelines about if this happens to a man's daughter, he has to pay shekels to the father and then marry her. And there's so many different things that happen. And if you don't want to believe that, let me give you this one. When it comes to the story about Lot in the Bible and his
Uh
wife
huh.
looked back and she turned into a pillow. So the best narrative, you hear me? The best narrative available is for the daughters to get their father drunk and to have kids with. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Uh
This
huh.
is
Uh
from a
huh.
loving. This is from a loving God.
yeah.
When you stop and you really think about this stuff, you start to see the imprint of the hand of man, and anything the man touches is foul. And I'll tell you
Yeah.
that right now.
Remember
So
when the angels came in and I think it was trying to they was trying to have intercourse
with the men,
with Lot.
with the
Yeah.
men,
And remember he
with
pushed his
the men.
daughters outside. He pushed his daughters outside, gave them to him and closed the door.
Before in their right mind would do that, man. And who would write? We can't get a better narrative than that, and that's written by spirit, you know. But
I, I'm
that took a long time for me to get to that journey of being able to accept these different concepts. I tell people who are ex Jehovah Witnesses, for me, I had to back out. So let me give you this final example. First, I'm walking away from the headquarters. Then I'm relinquishing my positions. I'm backing out of the congregation. And then I'm looking at the next thing. Oh, the Bible. So now I'm peering into the Bible. I'm seeing all this. Now I'm looking at it for real, for real. And I'm starting to see various things. So now I'm dealing with that. Now you're stuck in the bucket. Okay, it's just me and you, God. And you know what I'm saying? So once the Bible goes foul on you, you see what I'm saying? Now you got to question all these other concepts. So I noticed that because I've been doing this ex Jehovah Witness administrator of a group for a long time, and I see people going through that process, and I just look at them. I see them. You ever see a person get thrown out of a nightclub and they come out yelling and screaming, ah, 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 and then they calm
Uh-huh.
down and then they have a breakdown? That's what I see people going through, and a lot of them
Right.
have been abused. You know, they went through various things in their life. So not only are they dealing with walking away from the brainwashing, they have memories that I don't have of someone doing things to them. You see what I'm saying? So that's a whole nother level of suffering. And so I try to help people to get to a point where they can just have peace and freedom in mind and have some awareness and be able to just be okay with yourself. And when you look in the mirror, right, you see but I is looking in the mirror at me and understanding that I and me and how they work together and how you can observe yourself and what you're doing and understanding how love works, how happiness works. You know, happiness is just like the sun. It always shines, but sometimes the clouds block it. So in my life, you know, when things are dark, I try to understand what's blocking that happiness or that sunlight because it's always there, but
Find that silver lining.
sometimes we allow things to block us. This might be a bad relationship. It might be family members. My aunt calling me, telling me, "Oh, I would have let your dad out there. Why did I even bother calling you?" You know, things like that can block your happiness. But the happiness is always present. Like when a rose is smelling sweet, it doesn't smell sweet just for the good people. It smells sweet for the bad. It's always constant, and the happiness is always there. I never really understood that. I always chase happiness and chase love, but those things that we have a hard time explaining what they are, but they exist. But we allow things to get in the way of the shining of it in our lives. So that's
Uh,
where I'm at, and
Oh,
quite frankly, I'm enjoying life, and
that's well
I'm
said.
just I could have
Oh,
I could have went a different route, or I could be still trapped into a religion that basically, like in the Bible, where the taskmaster was hitting them in the back, saying more work, and
right.
I don't want no parts of that. So it's good to be free, and
Yes.
when
Yes.
you're there, listen. Let me tell you how this works, right? I never forget. I used to be in middle school, elementary school, and because of those Bible studies and the meetings talking about the end of the world, every time I put my life on it. Every time it thundered, I would think the end of the world was coming. That is terrifying for a child because that's what they
Oh.
teach. Armageddon's coming. Armageddon's coming. So you're always on the lookout. And look at me. I'm in my 40s now. You know, this has been a long journey of thunderstorms, thinking that the end of the world was coming, and now they're halfway backing away from that, and they're changing things around. So it's great to be free, but it's even better to help the younger ones who are coming up now to perhaps they'll look at a guy like me and say, well, yeah, he got out of that and he was a Betholite. You know, that might I think that'll go far for people when they say, hey man, this guy he was in there for 10 years. He couldn't have been a bad guy. You know what I'm saying? It means something. So I think I have to let my light shine. And sometimes I get into my own world of just enjoying life that I'm semi-retired. So, but I
Did
want to reach out and do more to
did you
get my message out there.
did you ever I'm not sure if you already went into it, but the people who were chosen in the congregation, the ones that were the 144,000,
Right?
how are they chosen exactly?
Well, that's so I'll tell you real quick. Most of my life, they taught that the 144,000 was pretty much already chosen, and it was all tied to 1914. But hey, who knew we'd be well beyond
Uh
2014? Now you
huh.
got to change your whole narrative, right? But during my last year, when I was in the infirmary, I never forget I was in the bed, had surgery or whatever. They came out with an article saying that that number had not been closed, and said. So I said to myself, how convenient. Because see now the old guys, especially the ones that were at Bethel, the headquarters when I got there, they all died off, and now they have to make room for the younger guys. So now the young guys can now, and I teach one thing, or I tell people one thing, and I saw this myself. The organization operates in a way to where they want company men, right? Especially if we want to try to entertain the idea that perhaps maybe the owners are not even Jehovah Witnesses, right? But they want solid company men. The problem is, I'll give you an example. There was one brother, black brother, that had been at Bethel 30 years, and he used to talk to himself. They thought he was a little eccentric, but he was professing to be of the anointed, but they never used him in a heavy way. So that tells you about some, he felt like it was racism. Him and I, we were great
Uh huh.
friends, right? Okay. So when you start to really think about the whole dynamics of that, they now night brothers. So they get a company man and they go to him and convince him, allegedly, hey, have you ever thought that you're anointed? Oh, okay. You've been at Bethel 30 years. We know you ain't going to go crazy on us and make us look stupid. You're anointed. So now all of a sudden he's on the governing body. I know several brothers who, when I left Bethel, they were not anointed, had no idea of being anointed, and now they're on the governing body. So that's just my theory. Um, but it makes sense when you're running it like an organization, because other than that, you have to wait for a guy to say, hey, I'm anointed. Then you got to look at his track record and decide if you want to put him on the governing body. And so far, only one black man has made it. And now we're talking about a God that's Jehovah, and he's choosing these men, but he only found one black one in all the world. Yeah. So anyway,
Wow.
Wow, wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's very deep. It's very deep. Listen, I'm glad I was able to share this. Hopefully, people that get to see it will find a ring of truth in it, and maybe someday, if it doesn't help you now, because see, that's what happened to me. I kept getting these boots dropped. The guy said, "Hey, these guys are racist." Boom, that's a boot drop. But
Mhm.
I'm a smart guy. I want to learn for myself. Or they always say the brothers told me during that time, wait on Jehovah. Okay, so I'm waiting on Jehovah. I see guys sleeping with somebody's wife that's been there 40 years. What made him go left? I see guys that have been there 30 years and they're telling me on the low, like, yo, you got to watch out for these guys. This organization is tricky. If you want to survive, if you want to become an overseer, you have to do this and that. So I get to see these guys. So all these things are starting to build a picture over time, along with the changes that are made. And then I'm seeing they call everything that they change in the Bible new light. And so they come up with a lot of new light. It's all manipulation. So the sooner you can understand about this religion thing, I think the better off you'll be. But you can still be happy.
You look nice and relaxed, and you look like you on a whole new journey. It shows. You look free.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
And if you and anybody that if you guys ever hear people using one thing I learned about like kind of cult like organizations, they have their own language. New
Mhm.
light, overseer, excommunicate. What was the
Right,
what when they kick you out? Excommunicated. Like all the and then
right.
these things don't exist probably except for this group. That back when we were with like carbonation, they had their own language. I love myself, thank myself. I have to, I'm thankful, and all those different things that they would say. So one thing that they do first is they change how you talk and how you communicate, so that only people a part of the group communicate that way. And you
Well,
could
Right.
overseer, well, that's a regular word as of an
watch your
overseer, but the watcher, yeah, 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 yeah.
the
But I mean,
no, that's his name. That's his name, the Watcher. No, overseer is a weird name to be. I mean, since
no,
they had
overseer is what who they use to look over after the slaves, the overseer.
right, but I'm saying that's not something we use in everyday talking. Like me and you, like there's no overseers right now in modern society. So the fact that they're using those type of words in their group of language, that they're in their language, their communication.
Hmm.
Not only that, but overseer is not biblical. Remember, everything that
Correct.
they stand on is supposed to be directly from the word. So all of the name, that's why the names that they use, even them not
Yeah.
referencing being a Christian, because remember, they don't they want to be, they want to make sure that they separate from
Hmm.
being, from being Christians. Even though it's in a way they'll say, yeah, we're Christ's light, but we're the witnesses of Jehovah. So
Yeah.
those
Right.
words aren't biblical, you know what I mean? But they're using them. Watch, you know what I mean? Even, from the watchtower, none of that that's not, that's not
Ain't-
scripture.
There wasn't no watchtowers in the biblical time.
Yeah, those aren't
Right.
scriptural titles.
Hmm.
So when you use those type of titles, but yet you going against people, you using the scripture to go against birthdays. You use the scripture conveniently to go against Christmas. But then when it and why people shouldn't have titles, because that was one of the main things they would say. People ain't supposed to have all of these titles, but yet when you get into theirs, there's all of these titles.
And
Yeah.
then new
Yeah.
light
So let
sounds
me.
like a Masonic word. New light. That sounds like something the Masons use when they're talking about their
Mm-hmm.
levels or when they learning more information.
Remember the founder. The founder was a Mason. He was
Mr.
also a
Herbert,
7 Day
right?
Adventist. That he was excommunicated, I believe, as a 7 Day Adventist. So he went and started his own religion,
That's
which is the
Herbert,
Jehovah
right?
Witnesses. So
No,
That's Herbert.
it's Charles Russell Tate, or Tate, Charles Russell Tate.
Ted Russell, yeah, Charles Ted Russell. So it's most people that are Jehovah Witnesses now. They don't understand. They wouldn't know that. And let me tell you what they did about 2 years ago. He was buried, or near his monument. They have but they had a pyramid with
Mm-hmm.
his name on it and all that. And they removed it 2 years ago because it was one of the big things that a lot of people were leaving the religion for, because they found out this guy's over here with a pyramid and he believed in all
Hmm.
these different concepts. It's hard
Yeah.
to push a religion along with that.
It's wild because in San Diego, right, we have a place called Old Town San Diego. It's a real historic place, and they have you go in I think like fifth grade, you go on a field trip there. And what's wild is he bought a house for like Ezekiel. I think he said Moses, and no, Ezekiel, Elijah, and I think he said and Jesus. And he bought this. It was this big house
Right.
that the mafia people used to own, and he said that they was gonna live in it when they got there in 1914. And then when
When the snakes
1914
came
came,
back.
he
Yeah.
lived in it. Yep.
Right. Yeah.
And so we listen. This has been 2.5 hours. I want to. Does anybody have it? I mean, Blue, you got any other things you want to say real quick?
Nah, just give him my number. Just make sure you give him my number.
Man, this has been
Yeah. I'm
really
big.
awesome. I really appreciate you coming here. Man, this has been emotional for me because I
Yeah.
really feeling people's pain. Like I'm going through it. And I done went through the whole story. Even told I done got mad. Man, I cried at one point. When they took your money, I said they took his money, didn't they? I know they took his money.
But
I
don't
almost
forget, guys, his YouTube page is Watching the World. You see it written across exactly the way it is. Check it out. If you want to learn more and hear what he got to say, please check out Watching the World. Hit that link
and it's
and
watching the world 4428. And
and
he also, if you want to give him a donation, a cash app, His Cash App is $ Beyond the Holding. I'm gonna put it in the cap. Beyond Holding.
And he said he will eventually. He will be making newer videos, but it doesn't matter because anything you watch is going to be new to you anyway. So go check it out.
Right, and there are a lot of like ex Jehovah Witness. I'm not sure if you've been checking out the comments that I've been putting up, but there's actually people that are in this that are definitely being touched by your story. That they were telling their stories in the chat as well. So if you're when it comes up, check it out. I mean, is this been eye opening for a lot of people? So
I
thank you
mean,
so.
it helps more
Hey, thanks for
than
having me. I really appreciate it.
it helps beyond ex Jehovah Witnesses because a lot of things are the same concept. So you're helping beyond ex Jehovah Witnesses that's
Right.
put in certain religions, and now when they get to your story, maybe they'll get the courage to get freedom. So again, we thank you so much for gracing us here and sharing your story.
Oh, thank you. I'm privileged to be here among you guys.
And as we always say, what do you always say, Sugar, to me?
DJ, take us out of here.
Alchemize your energy. Darling, let your spirit be free. Don't give up. Keep on pushing through. Now is the time. It's all up to you. Alchemize your energy. My friend, let your spirit be free. Don't give up. Keep on pushing through. Now is the time. It's all up to you. No matter the storm, but over tragedy. No matter the storm, but over tragedy. No matter the storm, we will always take flight. Keep on pushing through the darkness of night. There's no limit, let's reach for the sky. Shine.